Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Islamic Lessons Made Easy. Now, we're told by the Ahlul Bayt that their true followers are happy when they are happy, and we are sad when they have their sad occasions. And during these days, we do have a few sad occasions. We have the martyrdom of Sayyidah Ruqayya alayhi salam, the daughter of Imam Hussein, and also our second Imam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam. So we send our condolences to the Imam of our time for those. Inshallah, we have a few lessons lined up for you guys today, so I hope you find them as useful as I do.
Assalamu alaikum from me to you. We have a lot of things to do. First, let's get our ears ready and open your eyes real wide to see these beautiful lines of poetry.
It is important for us to know that in sunshine or even snow, we are put in a high status and never low, and through Allah's light we glow. Many will try to degrade us, but we are much more worthy than dust. Make sure that a throne you entrust, our status in society we should readjust. Like Zainab and Fatima, we are courageous, and through them we will be righteous. People say we have a disadvantage, but that is simply outrageous. Through these principles, we will be victorious, and with our hijab, we remain gracious. Piety is always contagious. Don't you know the status of women? It is about what we are within. Surely that is where we should begin. Regardless of who you are or the colour of your skin, we are sisters herein. If anyone tells you otherwise, allow them to realise that it's not up to them to authorise your worth or how you rise. Remember to be like the Ahlul Bayt. In everything you do, be great, and always be able to appreciate all they have taught us. Always love and never hate.
Be proud of who you are, like in the sky of the shining star. Now we remember the daughter of Imam Hussein, who went through so much pain.
She was the daughter of our beloved Imam Hussein, and truly she witnessed so much pain. Upon all her worries would rain, but she would never cry out in vain. Her patience was beautiful, and her cries were worshipful. It is Ruqayya who did not know how to be sinful, as she carried herself and was so graceful. All she wanted was her father. She did not ask for anyone other. Her pain was not cured even by her mother. It seemed to her Aunt Zainab that she cried forever. What happened is very sad, and so we should remember. In all the months, even in December, whether it be in the winter or in the middle of summer, every time we hear the stories, something new we discover. If we were there on that day, what would you stop and say to little Ruqayya, who couldn't find her way back to her father as on the grounds he lay? Send your salams to the patient Ruqayya today. I hope we can learn from this lesson to love all without tension, to be together in the heavens and have their light shine so fluorescent.
We hope now you understand the story of the caravan, the Ahlul Bayt who were oh so brave, the ones who we love and praise. We thank you for watching our play and listening to what we have to say. Peace be upon you each and every day.
Do you know what the third letter of the Arabic alphabet is? That's right, it's Ta. Now, it seems fairly simple and straightforward, but here's a short clip on the different ways in which it's used and how we're supposed to pronounce it.
This letter is called Ta. It looks similar to the previous letter Ba, except it has 2 dots on the top. It is a light letter and should not be pronounced heavy. In English, it sounds like the letter T, like in the word taxi or the word tank. This is what Ta looks like in the beginning, like this in the middle, and like this at the end of a word. Here are some examples. ta in the word taj, which means crown, or dates in Arabic is tamr. Note, sometimes the ta can also look like this or this, but only at the end of a word. It is known as the tied up ta. It is pronounced as the letter ha if we read the word on its own. For example, this word, which means tree in English, reads shajarah and not shajarat. Or this word says Fatima and not Fatimat. We pronounced both words with a ha at the end. But if the word with a tied up ta is linked to another word, it will be pronounced as a ta. For example, if I add this word Jamila over here, it will now read Shajaratun Jamila. It makes a ta sound. If I add this word here as Zahra, it will read as Fatimatu Zahra.
So we all know what taqleed means. It means to follow someone else when it comes to Islamic legislation. But when we read Islamic legislation, we come across a lot of terminology, words like wajib, haram, mustahab, makruh, and sometimes this can get a little bit confusing. So here's a short lesson explaining exactly what these words mean.
Here are some words we should know. Wajib, it means you must do it, like praying and fasting. You will be rewarded for doing it, but it will count as a sin if it was not done. Mustahab, it means it is better to do it, but you don't have to do it. For example, it is mustahab to say Bismillah before you eat. You will be rewarded for doing it. Haram, it means you must never do it. It will be counted as a bad thing and a sin if you did it on purpose. For example, stealing and eating pork are haram, and you should never do this. Makruh, it means it is better not to do it, but it will not be a sin if you did it. For example, going to the toilet and standing is makruh. Mubah, it means it's allowed. It is not wajib, mustahab, haram, or makruh. It is in the middle. For example, playing in the mud, watering my plants, shopping are all mubah.
How many times have we been told by our parents to start everything with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? Do we know why? Here's a short clip explaining beautifully why it's so important to begin everything we do with Allah's name.
Before we begin anything, we should always say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We are beginning in the name of Allah, who is the most kind and the most merciful. Allah will then help us in what we are doing, and nobody can then come and spoil the work that we are doing. Did you know that all creations of Allah always remember Him? The birds and the clouds, the trees, the sun and the moon all say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah is our creator, and we need His help in life, in everything that we do. We can ask by two of His most wonderful names. One of them is Ar-Rahman, which means the all-merciful towards everyone. The other is Ar-Rahim, which means the most kind towards believers. Allah will be kind to us in what we are doing and will spread His mercy over us while we are working hard. Can you think of times when you say Bismillah? What about before you eat or drink, or before going to sleep, or brushing your teeth? If we always remember Allah, He will always remember us. Once upon a time, there was a girl who always said Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before she did anything. She knew that Allah would always look after her and be with her. One day, after saying Bismillah, she put her ring in the cupboard, knowing that it would be safe. Her brother took the ring and threw it into the river. He didn't believe that Bismillah could really help her protect her ring. He decided that in the evening he would ask her where her ring was, and when she would go to look for it, it wouldn't be there. Later that morning, the girl went to the market with her mother to buy fish for dinner. When she was helping to clean the fish at home, she found her ring in the stomach of the fish. She was very amazed and wondered how it got there, but then put it back into the cupboard, saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. When her brother came inside, he asked her, "Where is your ring?" The girl brought it from the cupboard, and her brother was very surprised. He told her what he had done and said sorry to her. He then also started believing that Allah is with the person who says Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Moral of the story: always say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before you do something. Allah loves us, and when He created us, He gave us many blessings. What has Allah given us? Before we look anywhere else, let's look at ourselves. Can you name a few of Allah's blessings that we have? Our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our feet, our hands, and so on. What else can you spot in this picture that Allah has blessed us with? If Allah has given us so much, then we should always try and remember Him. I can see Allah's kindness and His mercy in everything around me.
I hope you found that as useful as I did. Now, have you ever heard of sun and moon letters? How come we say ash-shams and not al-shams? How come we say al-qamar and not al-qamar? Well, sheen is a sun letter and qaf is a moon letter. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but here's a clip that clears all of that confusion up. It's really important to know exactly what the sun and moon letters are so that we can recite properly when we read the Quran.
We have letters that are called moon letters, and we have letters that are called sun letters. If there is an alif lam, and the lam has a sukoon on it, and after the alif lam there is a sun letter, the lam becomes silent. And then the sun letter takes a shadda. The shadda means you double the letter that it's on. For example, there is an alif lam before a sun letter. It appears to read al-shams. We silent the lam and add a shadda on the sheen, the sun letter. Now it reads ash-shams and not al-shams. The sheen is doubled. I didn't read ashams, I read ash-shams with two sheens. If there is a moon letter after the alif lam, you pronounce the lam. For example, it reads as al-qamar and nothing changes. So how are we going to remember all these letters? The Quran has made it easy for us. If you see an alif lam and the next letter has a shadda, it's a sun letter and the lam becomes silent. Let's do some examples. We see an alif lam and the lam doesn't have a vowel on it. The shadda has already been placed there for us. The lam becomes silent and it will read wad-duha and not wal-duha. Or another example, we see an alif lam and the lam doesn't have a vowel on it. We see a shadda after the lam. We know now it's a sun letter. So the lam becomes silent and we read it as wan-nahar and not wal-nahar. If you see an alif lam and the next letter doesn't have a shadda, it's a moon letter and nothing changes. For example, it says Alhamdulillah and nothing changes. Here are some more examples. Does the letter after the alif lam have a shadda? Yes, it's a sun letter. The lam becomes silent. It reads Ar-Rahman and not Al-Rahman. Does the letter after the alif lam have a shadda? No, it's a moon letter. Nothing changes. It reads Al-Balad. Once you get familiar with this rule, if Allah wills, you will automatically recognize what is a sun letter and moon letter, and be able to read other Arabic books which don't have the shadda there for you.
Now, I'm sure we've all heard the word taqleed. Taqleed means to follow someone when it comes to Islamic rules and legislation. But there are so many words surrounding taqleed like wajib, haram, makruh, and it's really important to know exactly what these mean. So here's a short lesson explaining exactly what these words mean.
It is necessary for a Muslim to believe in the fundamentals of Islam, such as the oneness of God, by his or her own understanding. One cannot imitate a person in the fundamentals. For example, you must believe in God through your own wisdoms and proofs, and not because so and so said so. However, as for the branches of Islam such as prayer, fasting, Hajj, etc., during the occultation of the Holy Imam alayhi salam, one has several ways of acquiring the rulings of such principles. 1. He can either be a mujtahid jurist himself by studying and deducing from religious sources and evidences. This requires a long journey of excessive studying through seminaries. The Holy Quran says, "But why should not a party from every section of them go forth to become learned in the religion, and to warn their people when they return to them, that they may beware?" 2. The person can exercise a precautionary method, which may be explained in future lessons. 3. If you found it difficult to attend the long journey of becoming a mujtahid, you should follow one, i.e. do taqleed of a mujtahid, and act according to the verdicts of the mujtahid if he allows it. The Holy Quran says, "So then ask the people of remembrance if you do not have any knowledge." This mujtahid must have certain qualifications for you to follow. He must be male where both men and women follow, reach the age of Islamic maturity. He must be just, i.e. a mujtahid with a known good character and piety, who performs all his obligatory acts and refrains from the prohibited ones. He must be alive. There are special conditions for this which may be explained in future lessons. He must be Shia Ithna Ashari, have retentive memory and of illegitimate birth. He also must be the most learned and the most capable of understanding the laws of Allah. How can we identify a mujtahid and the most learned? 1. We ourselves are certain that this person is a mujtahid and the most knowledgeable. But we should be learned and have enough religious knowledge and evidence ourselves for this. 2. Another way of identifying a mujtahid and the most learned is by the testimony of two just and knowledgeable experts. Sometimes it is difficult to distinguish who is the most learned, and that is why you see so many followers of different mujtahids. But such differences should not lead to disputes and disagreements within the community. How do you obtain the rulings issued by the mujtahid, i.e. marja? Number 1. You hear the ruling from the mujtahid himself. 2. You hear the ruling from two just people. Some say even one is sufficient. 3. You hear the ruling from a person or a reliable scholar whose statement you trust. 4. Reading the manual or book for Islamic rulings of the mujtahid, provided you are satisfied it is correct, or even by calling or sending an email to their office. Sometimes a marja may not reach a conclusion to give a verdict, so he may say obligatory precaution must be taken. In this instance, you may follow the precaution or follow another marja of the next most learned. For example, the marja may say based on obligatory precaution, one must recite a complete second surah after Surah Al-Fatiha during prayers. So the follower must act according to the verdict by acting upon it, or refer to the next most learned marja for an answer. We all must learn the rules that we need in order to avoid unlawful acts, such as the rules of prayer, the rules of Tahara, Hajj rules, marriage rules, business rules, and etc.
How many times have you asked yourself the age-old question, how do I know Allah? Well, sometimes we know Him through His signs that we see around us, but here's another anecdote from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, which explains a closer way that we can get to know Allah.
There are two ways which can help us grow near to God. One way is called the outer way or the intellectual way, which is the clearest way. The second way is the inner way, which is the closest way. In this lesson, we will be speaking about the inner way. The inner way is also known as intrinsic nature, where we get in touch with our deep inner self. As humans, we have always had a faith in a higher power. This is part of our intrinsic nature built into our consciousness. Sometimes the consciousness just needs awakening. Let's explain by this story from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. The Imam said to a non-believer, "Have you ever been caught in a fierce storm in the middle of nowhere and thought you were going to drown and lose your life?" The man replied, "Yes." Then the Imam said, "And at that time, was there not a glimmer of hope that some miracle could save you?" "Yes," said the man again. The Imam said, "That power, that glimmer of hope that saved you, is that powerful force calling you to God." Question: if the belief in God is inside us, why are there many human beings who do not believe in God? Even though Allah places the intrinsic nature in the human being, people can sometimes choose to suppress the intrinsic nature or ignore it until it fades away. Although the intrinsic belief in God is always there, it is strongest at two times: in difficulties and at the moment of death. When a human being faces a problem and is going through a hard time, the intrinsic belief in God becomes very strong. When a person knows that they are dying, the instinct in God is extremely strong, even if they had rejected faith in God throughout life. Even pondering over the death of someone else can make the intrinsic nature in belief in God strong.
I hope you found today's lessons as useful as I did. Join us inshallah next time for another episode of Islamic Lessons Made Easy. For now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.